Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It's Me, Not You. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello, Jake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Today, we're going to be checking out our wax museum. So, on today's episode, actually, have you guys ever been to a Ripley's Believe It or Not?
I have.
Have you been to the one up in Lake George?
No, I went to the one in the city.
I think I went to one in Boston. It's an
Mhm.
odd place. How about for you, Melissa? Have you ever been into one?
I have not.
Or like a wax museum? Have you ever been to a wax museum? Odd, very
No,
odd.
because they're all going to come to life and they're all going to get me.
Is that your biggest fear?
It's a very rational one.
Definitely.
You know
all
what? I
I'm
know my
saying.
silly fear. Like after I leave readings and when I do groups and stuff, I'm not trying to call this in either, but I always get scared to use my backup camera because that would just scare the shit out of me.
Oh.
To see like a spirit,
like show up. Oh my God, I would lose my mind.
Oh my God, or to see like one on like your Ring camera.
Well,
I'd prefer
that happens a lot, so that I'm okay with. But
I just don't look. I don't want to know. Keep it to yourself.
yeah, I'll have to send you the video. There was a time I was in my bedroom and they told me to look in the living room and the spirit came out of the TV and just moved. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm okay because I'm watching from my like safety zone under my blankets.
safety zone.
That's true.
Sorry.
Did you guys, when you were young, like I used to purposely sleep towards the light because I was afraid that if I slept towards the dark, I was going to be like kidnapped to have my soul stolen. Like I used to like really like was very conscious of how I slept, and I was like I had to have a nightlight on. I was terrified of the dark for many years.
Yes, and I was afraid of the mirror in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, mirrors.
I had one of those tall standing mirrors, so I'd turn it so it couldn't see me.
Mirrors in the bathroom. And now it's interesting because I purposely will keep the lights off just because I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm good. I'm protected. Well, for today's episode, maybe we should talk about irrational fears rather than what we were going to talk about.
Right.
All right, let's talk about like quicksand, okay? Because quicksand, when I was young, was made to be a much bigger deal than what it is in actual reality.
But now
Because
you've got people on TikTok. Now you've got people on TikTok running around it, bouncing around on it, just flip-flopping around. First of all, where are you finding all this quicksand? Second of all, who enabled this myth?
it came from movies. I feel like the Never Ending Story. Like, remember what was it the Never Ending Story where the horse was in the quicksand?
Betray you.
Yeah,
This is a really sensitive subject. I'm really upset.
Or was it Princess Bride? Wait, no,
it was like Never Ending Story, like Princess Bride, like all of those, like Dark Crystal. Like they had these really like very.
Now we have just traumatized everyone from our generation.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
I made a friend watch it where the horse gets it. She's like, what would you do?
I do not. The Never Ending Story, that is not a movie that I like. It was too traumatizing for me.
I know. I remember I was so young when I watched that, and that was so sad.
It was so sad, and it's like this is being portrayed as a nice, like up whatever. Anyway, on that note, we're gonna talk about grief. And maybe like I think we lose loved ones that are very close to us, and how I just got really dizzy, and how we process grief and how we move through it. And we do feel that, I mean, I feel like in our day and age it's frowned upon to really be able to take time to grieve. I used to work in the place I used to work. I had two of my grandparents that passed away, and I didn't go to their funerals because I was afraid that I would get in trouble at work. And it's like, even now I look back and I'm like, wow, that's really sad that I didn't do that. And I didn't stand up for myself to say, no, I'm entitled to this time. So for you, Melissa, when you think about grief or going through the process of losing a loved one, maybe what are some of your, I don't know, talk about whatever you want.
So
there's too many questions coming in.
Choice.
I think that grief is a process for everyone. I think that real grief doesn't set in until the work is done, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the 2 to 3 weeks after the ceremony, after someone's laid to rest, because then there's nothing to do. So for myself, and I'm not saying it's a healthy way or the way, it's just what I do is I distract myself like crazy. And I will do projects. I get a lot of stuff from spirit to kind of create, to make, but I also kind of have been shown recently that it's a way of healing our sacral chakra. I think that the deepest love that we carry is not just from our heart, but it's from our sacral. It's the source of all that we are. Our sacral carries our genetic code. It carries, you know, it really, it just carries forth, you know, the birth of new things. So for me, all of that creativity is a way of healing my sacral. So then my heart has kind of a safe place to open up, to express how it's feeling. I'll get a lot of channeling. I may get channeling of things that I write about them, things that I miss about them, recipes. You know, I just made a transition tea the other day that is actually really good. And almost no sugar in it, which was nice. But yeah, so for me, it's about creative, and then I step into the earth. You know, I never mean to like cut people off or not be responsive, but I will go into my own little world, work with my bees, work with the land, and just really earth myself to kind of come back and let my emotions feel safe.
How about for you, Jake?
Allergies. For me, I don't know. I guess it just depends, because I mean, every loss kind of hits people a little bit differently, or kind of resonates with people a little bit differently. So maybe you might be called to do something a little bit special or a little bit more sentimental, given the relationship. But for me, just in times of loss or in grieving in general, I always like to kind of come back to my roots, which is, you know, I work a lot with spirit, work a lot with the other side. So I like to work with little family altars. You know, if you've just recently lost somebody, maybe put out a photo. If you know that they really loved a certain snack or dessert, you can put that out as an offering. And you know, you can go through albums, photo albums, videos, tell stories. I think that that's incredibly powerful too, to tell our stories about our loved ones in spirit, um, to keep the legacy alive, to keep the spirit alive in the mundane world, you know, because of course when they cross over, they're still with us in a different way. um, but I think it's really important, as like on the human being level, to make sure that we're still talking about them and that we aren't shunning the pain. You know, for a while, to really kind of take your moments, and if you need to be quiet, or if you need to distract yourself for a little bit, you know, that's just what you need in that moment. um for me personally, I always find that, you know, in times of grief, it can be easy to kind of go into autopilot, or to kind of lose that oomph. So I always try to kind of make sure that I will carve out a little bit of the day to just find something funny, listen to something like a stand-up comedy show, or a silly, you know, show on Netflix that I really enjoy, just to kind of keep the energy balanced. You know, sometimes we can lean a little bit too hard in one direction, you know, and kind of stay there for a little bit. um I think journaling is also really important too, you know, just to kind of get your own stream of thought out there, written down on a page, just get it out. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's different for everybody. For me, I really find a lot of comfort in grief when I hold personal ceremony, and do offerings and kind of have those chit chats. I think those are incredibly comforting.
I think it's also hard. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but sometimes there's a feeling of you don't have a right to grieve as much as someone else. If that makes
Mm.
sense for maybe someone that's been lost, you know, like especially if somebody's been lost to something traumatic. And then it's like, I don't know, it's just a different experience for everyone. And I think sometimes it's like in our mind, we have to be like, okay, this is okay. Like allow them space. But you know, have you guys ever experienced like over the top grief? Like it's like
Hmm.
they're throwing themselves into the ground. Like that's it's a interesting experience to
Yeah.
see. But yeah, and I think like what both of you said is like definitely just giving yourself space and time, and it may not come up for a couple years, or it may not come up for however long, and that's okay. And then, but I also think that you should give yourself permission to allow the emotion to come up. Like if there's sadness or maybe you're angry,
And
like,
We're
go ahead.
yeah,
guilty.
Guilty, yeah.
and in a way that's organic too. I mean, it's not, a grieve off. Let's say,
Right.
you have
Thank you. Maybe
siblings.
that's what it is, a grieve off. Like,
Like it's if
I
you
was closer to this person than you were. Like, okay.
Yeah, so even like if siblings, even for example, I've met a lot of, I've had a lot of sessions in cross paths with people who have lost parents that are mutual in
Mhm.
connection with, another person that they're with, and they feel, either that they're not feeling enough, and the other person's just so, riddled with that sadness
Yeah.
and with that, grief. So the other person starts to think, well, am I a freak, or maybe did I just not care enough? But for a lot of people, that reaction of kind of shutting down and kind of going a little bit cold for a
Mhm.
minute is just a way to protect ourselves. It's
Yeah.
you have to grieve in a way that's organic, and you can't shame yourself, certainly in a time that you're already hurting. Shame yourself for the way that you're experiencing those emotions. There's no right or wrong way. um
Or maybe it's like Melissa's saying, like guilty. Like maybe it is a loved one, and maybe you're one of their healthcare proxies or one of the people
mhm,
that you need to speak for. And I would imagine afterwards, did I make the right decision? Did I
Same.
make the right decision? Are they happy with what I chose to do?
mhm.
And I think
Just,
if you're, go ahead, Melissa.
I'm just touching on something you said a moment ago about the length of time. One of the things that I channeled the other day was that it's not about the length of time that you love someone, it's about the depth in which you are able to love and able to receive their love.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, I think and I don't think we talk about it a lot.
We don't. Or someone will say
Grieving,
like, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss, but yeah, can you go do this for me? I really need this." Or
or
I'm
yeah,
having a really hard day. And it's just like, oh, just shut up.
it's like it's okay that you've lost something, but hey, can you do a reading for me? I need you more than you need to take care of yourself. Like
Right.
since when is your needs more important than what I'm going through personally?
Right. And then
Yeah.
I'm tempted to be like, oh, you want a reading? I'll give you a reading. It's not gonna be one you
I'll show
like.
you a reading.
Right. I would
Yeah.
never do that, but it's like, come on.
And why would you want to maybe have a reading with somebody that is going through something that's traumatic and that's challenging and that's hard? Like, why
Just
would you want to
because
push them into that space of that frame of mind?
Right, just because we can talk to the other side does not mean that our human hearts do not hurt. It does not mean that we physically go through the grief process as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Yes, I know we can talk to them. I know we will be able to see the others on the other side, but at the same time, it's like, let me grieve, or I am going to give you a crappy reading. And I don't want to give people bad readings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to
And
give the full effect of what I'm able to with it, or even depending on the length of time that your loved one has passed, like all I'm gonna get is them. You're just gonna get advice from my dead relative if you want to come now. And you
no,
might not like what they have to say.
and also, I mean, something like you said, like we're also humans. Like we're having a human experience, and one of our
Mhm.
human experiences is to have emotions and to
Right.
have feelings and to work through those. And
Mhm.
maybe your higher intelligence or your mediumship gifts, that's something that can be kind of, all right, right now I'm going to be human and I'm going to go through this process and these feelings and this emotion,
Yeah.
you know?
um I think there's also even something to be said too for, that kind of grace period that I usually advise people to wait, after the loss of a loved one before seeking out somebody like a medium, or trying to get in contact with them.
How long do you think that
I
process should be?
You know what, I think, for me, I do. So I did a lot of class work with Lisa Williams, and she was really adamant about minimum 3 months, really would love 6 months. um and I kind of like that notion, that
Hmm.
school of thought, just because I feel it's hard to exactly pinpoint what it does, but I have just seen what it can do to the grieving process when we try to reach out a little bit too soon. Number one, just as a practitioner, I know that it's sometimes hard for people from the other side to just immediately be able to communicate so clearly and bring all of this evidence, it depends on the reader, of course, and if they've
Mhm.
crossed over, whatnot. But if you were to sit down for a reading with somebody and they're not channeling all the messages and they don't bring up that one validating point that you were looking for to prove their life on the other side, that could be to your detriment of your healing process,
Yeah.
and also at the same time, spirit doesn't just learn how to communicate on the other side as soon as they die. It's a learning curve and it is a process. So I do really, it's a difficult answer to give to people, especially when they are hurt and they're trying to reach out. But I definitely, just for all of our listeners out there, a word from the wise, I do recommend 3 months. Let yourself grieve as a human, as a real life human being first.
Well, and also as a soul that passes, aren't there things that you need to go through, like when you transition?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
lessons. Yeah.
Lessons learned, things that they have to do on their own personal recap journey, and I always kind of say it's like them learning how to do Pictionary from the other side. Like it's not a
It's
trade
the
that they
same
just
as
will
us
pick up.
learning. Sometimes I
Right.
think you're like, oh my God, they got it. And we're like, yes, they can do it.
Yes.
So
Well, and also, like Jake just said, and I know Melissa, she helps souls do this, is like the crossing, like crossing the bridge, and maybe they haven't crossed yet, and you're trying to get on 12 hours. I mean, I know Melissa's experienced this with people that have passed. It's second they've passed, they're go reach on to Melissa.
Hmm.
I mean, how does that, like, you're like, no, like what?
it varies. So for me, if somebody's asking me less than 3 months, I will say, well, who is it?
Yeah.
And show
Hmm.
me a picture. Because to me, it's like a phone call to heaven. I'm just the operator. Because I don't want to call any other direction. So it's like, will they pick up? And if they don't, then I'll be honest and say I can't reach them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
or this wouldn't be a good time. For
Hmm.
some, they have done their work. Maybe they have been sick for a while. Maybe they've been really devout in their faith, and there's no fear, worry. Some of that transition can happen in the now if you are, but we don't talk about death. We talk about death like it's this horrible thing and it's welcome home.
Yeah,
Hmm.
death is just a
So
doorway.
it really depends on how your view of death as a human has been
Mm-hmm.
to what it's going to be like to be able to communicate from the other side or with the
Hmm.
other side. Or, some of them, there's one in particular that he got me the moment of his death. He asked me to reach out to someone, and they had just walked into the hospital room and found he was gone. But he was so afraid that the thing he told me to tell his family is, if they let me in, they'll let anyone in. And I made it. I saw the light and I ran. So it was like, that information they needed. And that was really all I could get at that point. But it just gave that healing and the closure that everyone was looking for too. So
Hmm. That's funny.
yeah, but I've been really, because I am going to Scotland, so I've been doing lots of downloads, lots of reading. And they used to celebrate, what was it? The only thing difference between a funeral and a wedding was the food or something. Like it should be a happy celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or no, it was the
absolutely.
dress. That's what it was. The only thing difference between a funeral and a wedding is the dress.
The
Yeah,
color.
that's true.
I love that.
And it should be, there's going to be grief involved, of course, but it should be a celebration of life, of the transition, of the welcome home. It's much as about their spirit's journey as it is about our experience of, being still here while they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So what do you any tips of advice maybe that you guys have for somebody that is grieving, that maybe is struggling?
Let's see. I know that
I
sometimes people, oh, go ahead.
I mean, from a practical sense, like, as being a nurse, hospice does offer free counseling and free resources for people
Hmm.
that have lost loved ones. And hospice is an incredible organization that I highly recommend that anyone that is experiencing death or dying, that they reach out to.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love that idea, and I think that if it is an incredible loss that you've just recently had, or maybe even from years ago that you feel that you still haven't really put the pieces together about, I always love, to recommend, seek somebody out like a counselor or a
Yeah.
grief counselor, a therapist, somebody that you can just talk to, and really let it all out.
Or support
Sometimes,
group.
yeah, support
Yeah.
groups too, survivors groups, things like
Yeah.
that. I know a lot of people I've come across will find comfort in maybe continuing a hobby that they really loved, that the loved one did, whether that's crocheting or maybe it's gardening, things like that. Sometimes doing something in the honor of somebody that's passed can make us feel very connected to them and really close with them still on the physical world from the other side. Um, God, it's really all it's stop and go, isn't it? With grief, it feels like
Yeah.
it's different for everybody, and there's not really one straight line to recommend. But I would definitely always say, just take your time, whatever you need to do, and however grieving looks like for you. But make sure that we put a little bit of an eye on how long we'll allow ourselves to be in that moody landscape. Until we kind of set that timer to be like, okay, how do I start to reintegrate? How do I start to find the pieces and put them together and keep pushing forward?
And I think for maybe somebody who's peeking in on somebody that's going through a loss, like don't be afraid to reach out. Like
Yes.
I think that, and I know like I'm sorry for your loss and people sometimes say it's trite, but I do think people do mean what they're saying. But don't be
Yeah.
afraid if somebody did have a very like traumatic loss or something like that, like you don't want them to be left alone.
And it's also like incredibly isolating, going through a loss, number one from losing a loved one, but at the same time, I think it's because what we just said earlier about grief and the loss of loved ones is such a difficult conversation sometimes
Mm,
for people, or people might be too nervous to say the wrong thing, or feel like they don't have enough tools to be supportive in this moment. And so oftentimes the person that lost a loved one will then feel like they are kind of pushed off to the side a little bit, or almost like ignore it a little bit
yeah,
even more, just because people are a little bit uncomfortable or don't know how to have that conversation of death.
yeah,
And so I would just say for anybody, if you know somebody that's lost somebody or that's in the process of losing somebody, reach out. Honestly, just knowing somebody is there and that they're checking in is really so comforting, and when that person's ready, they will respond.
yeah.
Just keep the lights on.
Keep lights on. How about for you, Melissa? Anything else before we wrap up this episode?
So for me, I think the healing is three-phased. We need to take care of our mind, and that's talking to someone. And we need to take care of our physical body. We need to stay active. It's the foods that we do, the things, and choose health. It's really easy to like, okay, I'm sad, so now I have permission. Even though I did find that chocolate does release a lot of serotonin, and it is a feel-good thing, but it's not
Doesn't
going
mean you're drinking 7 bottles of vodka.
right. It's not going overboard. And then it's also taking care of your spiritual health. So prayer, meditation, whatever that is, to really make sure that we take care of all aspects of ourselves when we're going through grief.
Yeah, mind, body,
One of
and
the
soul.
other things that I got
Mhm.
from the spirits recently too was that that's why there's food. Because
Wait,
we
what?
this is
What'd
why
you
there's
say?
food with grief. Yeah. So this is funny, right? So you get
Wait, I
together.
don't even know what you said.
It's about food.
That's why there's
So
food? I don't know what that means.
food,
Oh,
eating,
No,
food.
that's why
food.
there's food.
Oh,
At
that's
first, I
why
heard
there's food. I didn't hear you correctly. I was like, what is she channeling? Some foreign language? What?
no.
Yeah, well, I'm
That's so
trying to
funny.
like, it was,
At,
they were messing with me a little bit,
at
but
first, I heard that's Reese Witherspoon.
I know. I was like, that's what the spoon? What?
yeah, they were trying to change my mouth a little bit.
That's
So
why it sounded like Irish. Like it's
yeah,
not.
it's about food because we
That's
have
why
this
there's
tendency
food.
when we're uncomfortable. How are you? And then you're like, oh shit, I didn't mean to say that. Like, ugh,
Ugh.
you know? And so, but it's okay to say, how are you doing? But one of the things they said was when you're uncomfortable, you just eat, you drink, and
Be
um,
merry.
and it is about being merry, but asking somebody, how are you doing? And most likely the response is going to be fine because they don't want to burden anybody with how they're doing, or people don't want to hear it, or people are sick of hearing it, or whatever that is. But no, it's like, how are you really doing? And then if they don't have much to say, just ask, well, tell me something like, what's your most fun memory that you've had with the person, or something to get them into a way of being able to express themselves or express the stories in a positive way.
Mhm.
And the last thing I'll say is that you don't have to be strong. I don't know where that came from, but strength lies in being vulnerable, which I hate that word too, but strength does lie in being vulnerable to your emotions, to your feelings, to the life that they had, to the love that they gave, and really allow yourself to be in that space of vulnerability, because that's where your strength comes back.
Mhm.
And when your strength comes, so does that strength of your connection with them, because you are a piece of them. If it's a family member, and even if it's not a family member, you're still a soul piece of them, and you are there to help carry them forward as much as they are support you to go forward in whatever purpose or mission that you're here for.
That's beautiful.
And that was pretty much channeled, so I'm glad I can rewatch
Thank
this.
you.
I love that. That was
beautiful.
stunning.
So on that note, I'm going to thank all the listeners for listening today. Thank you all the listeners for listening today. So listen some more.
Thank y'all.
Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
See ya.